Mediocrity is continuing to be more and more accepted, while people still expect results from those above them. The acceptance of the dad bod, bad bosses, and doing the grind are just a few examples of the new average. But leaders, we need to be better than the average. For our teams, our organizations, and even ourselves depend on our peak performance. That's why being average simply sucks. Today, my guest Michael and I discuss topics such as how leaders can identify if they're average, how to utilize role models to your advantage, how to move from where you are to where you want, how to overcome failures en route to their goals, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 129, Being an Average Leader Sucks, with Michael Bernoff.
Welcome to this episode of Moving Forward Leadership. Stick around and learn how to achieve, excel, and become a leader that people willingly follow. Lead, don't boss. And now, here's the host of our show, Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy.
Welcome one, welcome all. It is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and it's so great to have you here at the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, where we talk about the three domains of leadership, and that is leading yourself so that you can be that leader you want to be, leading your team so that you can achieve peak performance with them and gel and build and form an outstanding team, and finally, leading your organization. Why? So that you can help it achieve its peak output. And today, we couple Michael Bernoff, an expert in how not to be average, with my 20 years of military experience to bring you this episode. So it's so great to have you here. And as I said in the intro, it just seems like more and more mediocrity is being accepted. The more we look around, it's being accepted and glorified in some regards. And it sucks. I personally don't like it. I don't accept it. But yet people all around accept it. And that is why when I got the pitch for Michael to come on the show to talk about why being an average leader sucks, I immediately jumped at the opportunity to bring him on. So here he is today. So who is Michael? Well, first off, he once upon a time was average. He got called out for not living up to his potential. And just like it happened to me, it happened to him, it bothered him. So rather than shrinking from it, he decided to step up and solve a problem which he saw in the professional and personal development industry. This quest led him to develop human interaction technology, which moves society forward through the power of communication. From there, Michael founded Human Communications Institute, which is dedicated to creating rapid and lasting change in people's lives. He works with entrepreneurs, athletes, execs, Fortune 500 companies, doing courses, live events, and training for those who want to achieve a life beyond limits. Folks, this is a great show. Michael is dynamic, he is spontaneous, and really energetic, let me tell you. So I've had a great time interviewing him, and I know that you are going to enjoy this. So before I hit play on the interview, I want you to do one thing. I want you, when I say go, hit pause on this episode and share it with someone who you think could use this. And you know what? Maybe you guys can, or gals, or people, whatever, can listen to this episode together. If not, go ahead and discuss it afterwards, because there's so much value in here that it is worthwhile for you. So go ahead. When I say go, hit pause and share it with someone who you think could use this episode. Ready? Go. And welcome back. Thanks for doing that. I'm sure that whoever you shared this episode with is going to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed recording it. Anyway, that's it. That's enough for me. It's now time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my episode with Michael Bernoff. Why being an average leader sucks. Michael, man, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thrilled to be here, Scott. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to get at it and see what we can do to make people's lives even better.
Absolutely. I absolutely love the title of the book, Average Sucks, because I
Boom.
couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sure the listener, loves that title, because that's why they're listening to this podcast. They don't want to be that average leader. They don't want to be that boss that they had that they absolutely hated. And they're like, I need to do better. So the show I revolve around, I focus on what I call the 3 domains of leadership: leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. We're going to talk all about leading yourself today and how leaders can become the best versions of themselves and not be that average leader, right?
Well, it's the truth, man. And I'll tell you, I had a buddy the other day I went to high school with, played hockey with this kid in Jersey when I was younger, and he found me on Facebook, saw the book came out. He goes, I bought 15 copies of the book. And I said, great. I said, who for? And he's a big corporate guy. He said, for 15-year-olds, because the title says itself, whether they read it or not, doesn't matter. They're athletes. Why wouldn't they want to be above average? And that's the most fascinating thing in the world, is if I would have known what I knew now when I was younger, would have made the biggest difference. So I'm here for you, all ears, all eyes, all whatever you need, you got for me today to share with you.
Well, the first thing I like to know is, like, where's the start point? Where did the idea of the book even come from? Where the drive came from that you woke up one day and go, I'm going to write a book today about how average sucks?
I'll tell you. So my question is, do you want it's a multifaceted answer, and I'm a big communications guy. So do you want how I came up with the title, or do you want to know how I got the book? Because there's 2 different things. I mean, I own the trade name. I own the words. You buy an Average Sucks shirt, you're getting from our company. We own the thing. And we always say it's not a logo. It's a statement of how you live. So what would you prefer? Where do you want to start? How I came up with the name, or in the first time I said it, or you want to know like what it means?
Whatever makes the most sense, man. You dive in.
Well, here's the thing, man. I'm probably grew up probably the most average person in the world. I don't know where you grew up exactly. I grew up in a little middle class neighborhood in Rockaway, New Jersey, little town, and probably the most average kid outside of my 6'6" height as a senior in high school. Probably the most average person in the world. So like I'm one of these middle class 1980s kids that grew up, born in 77, lived in 80s, 90s. Everything was right down the middle, and it wasn't until I got older that I recognized that being average used to work, and now it's a curse. I mean, it's a real problem. If you were average in the 80s, you did well, right? You got ahead, you're good financially, you could do good. Food supply was okay. Now if you're 80, now in 2000, whatever, you're average, you're dead. Does that make sense? So it's an interesting world. So it hit me. I was at my oldest daughter's cheerleading. Have you ever been to a competitive cheerleading event?
I got boys, so no.
Okay, so you're lucky. Okay, I'm just kidding. But so what it is I want you to visualize this. Unlike a hockey game or a baseball game with 2 hours, you fly to Vegas from Phoenix, and you're there for like 3 days, big fees, big everything, to watch your child for 2-3 minute stints. Now they practice this thing forever. So we're sitting there at this event, and the music goes out on their show. And I'm just thinking, okay, it's my kid. They'll let him start again. And my wife goes, no, they continue. So I want you to imagine a 3-minute or 90-second dance thing. They've been training for 6 months, and literally the music goes out and they have to finish, and they finish perfectly. They've trained under the most extreme circumstances to know that if the music goes out, they still got to be perfect at what they do. And it was over. I said to myself, damn, I said, average sucks, man. That's how you win. They got 0 deductions. They were above average. They did it. And I wrote down the words, and I'm like, you know what? If I write a book, that's what I'm going to call it. And it took me 9 years to get the book out there, because there was nothing out there in the world like it. So I wasn't copying or borrowing from anything. It wasn't about me being better than you. It was literally that day I wrote down the word average sucks. And then it took me 9 years as a very motivated guy to physically get the book to be in people's hands and be published.
That's pretty neat. Yeah. I can only imagine what that would be like, just watching with the music on, watching.
And it's like, why don't they stop? And then I'm like, no, they're trained like Navy SEALs to be phenomenal. You figure it out, that you're a great athlete, you deal with the crowd. So they were above average, they won. And that's one of the things people have to be this day in this world is you got to be above average or you're going to lose.
No, I totally agree with you. So I think everyone needs that epiphany moment, right? And go, you know what? Maybe I'm not that great. Maybe I'm not performing to the level where, that I think I am, or just realizing that I am average. So how can leaders, do that self check out there? Are they being a great leader? Are they actually an average leader? How can they do that self check before they start, diving in deep?
Yeah, that's big. So here's the deal. Here's what it really means. So I got a license plate that's average sucks, got stickers, everything, big brands thing. And what I recognized is people pull me over, like not pull me over, but like they'll stop me. Hey, dude, man, I love it. Average sucks, man. I'm like, do you even know what it means? And they're like, yeah, dude, be better than everyone else. I'm like, dude, that is nothing what it means. It's exactly one of your first pillars. It's you've got to be better than you. So let me ask you, Scott, have you ever had that feeling where if you looked at your income or you looked at your life or you looked at your show notes or whatever, that if you looked at your year is pretty similar to last year, no matter what? Like, it's like your weight, if you averaged it out, you have an average weight that you weigh. Sometimes you weigh more on the holidays, overeating, a little extra stuff, maybe a couple beers if that's your thing. I don't drink, do you know what I'm saying? But maybe that's your thing. Or a little extra cake. Or in the summer, maybe you're losing some pounds because you're getting out of the house, getting out of your ski gear. Do you know what I mean? So we have an average in life. And what average sucks means is this. Every human being has an average of what they make, an average how intimate they are, average how the relationships are, average how of a leader they are. We all have an average. And your average controls your actions, your decisions, the way you live your life, and everything is contingent on your average. So here's why it sucks. If what you want and what you have are not the same thing, your average sucks. And what leaders need to recognize is they're not as good as they think they are. So I'll deal with salespeople. Do you got a lot of salespeople listen to this? A lot of people in business sales?
Yeah. There's a lot of business people in there. And I deal with a lot of clients who are sales, right? A lot of my clients, my coaching clients, they go from being a salesperson to a sales manager or team lead. Right?
So the question you got to ask somebody is like, I asked a guy, how good are you at sales? And like, oh, dude, I'm great. I said, scale of 1 to 10, how good are you? I'm a 9. What'd you make last year? It would be American money, so it'll sound a little bit more, or sound a little less. $80,000. I said, 80 grand. That's like $110 Canadian, right? And he goes, I think my numbers are pretty good. And he goes, I go, you can't be that good. So compared to like Bobby Axelrod in Billions, or compared to a guy that runs a hedge fund that did a $30 zillion deal, how good are you? So the question is, as long as you think you're great, you give yourself no room to grow. So I always ask people, like, how good are you? How good are you compared to what you're capable of being? And I think most people did you like sports when you were a kid?
Oh, I love sports.
What do you like?
Hockey. Come on, Canadian.
Are you okay? So we gave you Austin Matthews. He's from Phoenix. So we gave you him. You can have him.
Yeah, but he's with the Leafs. I hate the Leafs.
Oh, who's your team?
Montreal.
Okay, you're a Quebec fan. So Chris Nyland, I had him on a couple of months ago. I talked with him. Remember Chris Nyland back in the day?
Yeah.
Nyland, old school. Mark Messier is my hero growing up. Okay, so I'm a Rangers fan. I'm sorry, we can argue on a couple things, but Messier,
it's all good. Messier, all the respect in the world, man.
Yeah, you got to love Messier, one of the greatest leaders in the world. And so what I ask people is like, why would I want to try to be Messier when I could be the best Michael Bernoff? And that's what most people don't recognize. Like, why do you want to try to be Guy Lafleur, one of these guys back when we were kids? Like, why would you want to be them when you could be the best version of you? And I think most people are so consumed with being the next Lee Iacocca or the next Steve Jobs instead of why not be the full version of you? So I guarantee there's a whole 30% of your life you haven't even played out. Everyone listening. And that's what the book's about. How to play out the full version of you.
Now, should people be identifying those role models and striving to, look for the good parts of them, getting the good parts, striving towards those good pieces that they identify with?
We should honor them, but not try to be like them. And what I mean by that is you need to be all you. Like, the world doesn't need another Michael Jordan. They already had one, right? What they need is you to be full you. I mean, how good could you be? That's the question. Like, Steve Jobs wasn't trying to be someone else. He was being full version Steve Jobs. So that's my take on the world is I think we need to model, have role models, look up, admire what people do, but then we need to look inside and go, how much more can I grow?
Right. Now, do you go into an action plan of that growth and how that people, anybody for this show, obviously leaders, go from where they're at right now to get to where they want to be down the road?
Well, I absolutely, and I'm going to tell everyone for the few cents it is, get the book, Average Sucks. I mean, I just highly recommend you get the book. And the reason why is it's not hard to find, go to averagesucks.com. But the reason, the game plan is simple. Let me ask you this question. In your life, if you're dealing with a coaching client everyone's got what I call negotiables and non-negotiables in their life. And what happens is all human beings had a day. Like, how long have you been doing this podcast? Because it's great. How long have you been doing it?
Like 4 years now.
Okay. So what were you doing prior, before coaching and podcasting? And
Oh, actually, this is my side hustle. So by day, I'm a Canadian Army officer.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Not the Royal Mounted Police, are you? Are you one of those guys? Or?
No.
Okay. That's cool. They got cool uniforms, right?
Yeah,
so
mine's better.
You're an officer?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. What kind of sidearm do you have?
Well, I don't have one right now.
Okay. What did they give you out there?
We usually get the Brownings, but our primary weapon is C7, C8. So M16, M4.
Cool. All right, cool. I always like to ask. We're American. This is the questions we ask, right? So the question is, you got to a day where you said to yourself, that's not all I want to do with my life, correct?
That's right.
You had an enough is enough day where you said, I am more than just an officer. I've got leadership qualities. I want to be coaching. I want to make a difference in the world, correct?
Correct.
And you built what I call a wall behind you, and you said never again. And in that moment, you built a dream. Oh my God, I could do this. I could do that. And this is what most people do. You did it without thinking. You woke up pissed off or excited one day. Everyone does this. Everybody says this. Mike Modano said this. I'm a Modano fan from when I was a kid. I don't know if you remember Mike Modano.
Oh yeah, another solid guy.
What's that?
Another solid guy.
Solid guy. Mike Modano woke up and goes, dude, I better get aggressive. I can't play in front of the net if I don't change, right? So he basically said, never again. And you said never again. So you built a wall behind you, said never again, and a wall in front of you of, oh my God, I want this thing. And then you built an identity. Your identity was, I am Scott. I don't want to be there. I do want to be here. And every day you woke up, I want this. I don't want that. And then you got just enough people in your life in this other wall. You got these boxes, and you can see it because we're drawing it, of the people in your life to motivate you enough to fire you up, to piss you off, to make you excited, to cheer you on. And then you build yourself a box. Without knowing it, you built a box one day that is not your old life. It's your new life, but you didn't really think it through. You just thought through, I don't want that. So you just threw anything else out there. Most people don't recognize that it's the day that you say, I don't want to be here anymore. That is the first step. So when a human being accepts they're not where they want to be in the relationship, their life, their health, ultimate opportunity shows up. Massive insecurity shows up, and it's inside the fixing of that insecurity which builds the confident leader. Yeah, and that's all outlined in the book.
It's funny that how you mentioned that, because it's so true. I woke up one day and said, I'm going to start a podcast. Why not? Just for fun.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, I need some social media to promote it. So I'll do social media. And then I was like, oh, I need somewhere to put the show notes. Might as well build a website. Oh, now I got people talking to me. Now I got people saying, hey, can you help? And all of a sudden now I'm doing coaching calls 3-4 times.
You didn't really plan it out. You basically said, I don't want to do just the military thing anymore, right?
That's 100%.
And in that moment, opportunities showed up. The problem is 10 years from now, if you don't update your average, you're going to be like, what happened? I didn't get what I wanted. Because you have the life now that you wanted 4 years ago. But if you don't upgrade your box and say, wait a second, my worst case scenario is a guy with a killer podcast and killer coaching, which is you now, right? That's my worst case scenario. My next step scenario is fixing the government, solving COVID, whatever else the next thing you're going to do. If you solve that, dude, you got my money. So you got to get that solved.
So what you're saying is your average is basically continuing shuffling, thing, right? So
it's a never-ending battle. You're going to have the rest of your life. Accept it. Right. It's your automatic.
So how do we combat the fatigue of combating that average, right? I wake up yesterday. I always go by the 1% rule. I want to be 1% better, 1% better than what I was yesterday, right? Continuous improvement. Now that gets exhausting.
Yep.
If I look back 6 months ago to where I am now, I'm like, oh yeah, lots of great improvements. I'm happy with these areas. I'm not so happy with those areas, but man, I'm tired. I'm tired of continually trying to, push that line.
Well, who says you got to keep pushing? Who says you got to keep pushing?
There we go. That's definitely a great counter argument.
So in the 80s, Tony Robbins and everybody said, massive action. You got to take massive action. And massive action leads to massive burnout. Like Bud's training for the Navy SEALs, 90 days. If you listen to Goggins' book, did you hear Goggins' book?
No, but I've had Mark Devine and John Havlick on the show. So.
You get the boys, right? So those guys are straight killers, right? And they were forever and Buds and Navy SEALs. They could do that for a period of time, but then you can't do that anymore. So like you can push to a level, but you can't push forever. So I don't really believe in massive action. I believe in changing your average, which is what you do regularly. Like wealthy people do wealthy people things. Most people's relationship with wealth is something they'll one day get to. So we've got to realize it comes down to our identity. Like I sold fake IDs when I was a kid because people wanted to get in bars. I don't know if you had one because you guys are 18 to drink. We didn't have that. We had to be 21, right? So I realize most people have an identification of how they see themselves and who they really are. And if you could update what your ID is for yourself, like you ask people like, what is your relationship with this podcast? Like, what is your relationship with this podcast?
Me? I'm the owner, I guess. the
you
host.
Own it. It's important to you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So if a guy was starting out with a podcast, his relationship is something I want to do. It's like a single guy. I want a relationship. So if you want to change your average, you got to change your relationship with the thing that you want. It's your relationship with health. Like I ran Spartan races for years, right? My relationship with running and grip strength and ropes, my relationship with it was strong, right? Like your relationship with the military for a while was super strong, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Still is.
Is it this? It is, but it's not is it your day to day? Are you still in the military now?
Yeah, I'm still going. 19 years.
Fantastic.
Yesterday.
So your relationship it's amazing. So one day you're going to retire, correct?
Correct.
And when you retire, you're still going to have love and respect, but it's not your day-to-day relationship, is it?
Exactly. Right.
I love it. Good for you, man. Good for you. The world needs more leaders, man. Especially people need to listen to you. If anyone has not coached with you yet, I'm telling you, a guy that has a military background, I hire those people first and foremost because you know how to get the job done.
Yeah. No, this is awesome stuff. So one of the things that we often run into, and something I run into daily as I coach and helping people out, is people running into failure. So people, they've identified where they're at, they have identified where they want to be, they've set the roadmap, they're working, they're like, yeah, and all of a sudden, boom, they get hit with something side rails everything. How do we get past that? How do we get past that disappointment? How do we overcome it? And most importantly, get back on track to moving towards where you want to be.
I guess the question is, what's the relationship with failure? And that's the thing. So my relationship with failure is putting a timeline on success. And what I mean by that is, as long as you don't put a timeline on it, there is no failure. It's just going to take some time. So that's a good statement. It's like, that's one of the things I learned years ago is that have you actually failed or you haven't gotten it yet? And that's a big difference. Number two is, I think most people have unrealistic expectations. Expectations minus reality equals disappointment. I think most people don't recognize that there's a learning curve in life. And like I met a guy once that he was a sales guy. Phenomenal. First year in the business, made $250,000 US money. Great. That's great money. Great job in sales first year. I said, how'd you do it? I said, what was your background? Everyone was jealous of the guy. First year, never did sales before. He was a Marine recruiter. That's sales. He literally would go to the malls and recruit kids into the military, right? That's a sales job. So a lot of people don't know their backstory. And I had Theo Fleury on my podcast at one point. He talked about like, why was he so good in the NHL? Well, dude, if you can deal with the trauma of being picked on for being a little kid your whole life and then having the trauma that he had as a person, hockey's an easy thing. So the question is, what have people been through and what have you experienced prior? So you get a person that's starting business for themselves and they have goals or expectations or body or something. How long have you been in the game? And what dues have you paid? And I know most people don't want to hear that, especially these days, but you're going to pay your dues one way or another. You're going to so I want you to imagine there's a wall in front of you. And you know this from basic, there's like a 12-foot wall. You got three ways over the wall. One is have somebody help you over the wall. That's coaching, right? Number two is run your head and lower it, go through it. That's a bloody mess. That's not going to work out well. And number three is grow bigger than the wall. And most people aren't willing to outgrow the wall. And you outgrow it by growing the parts of your life that get you to grow, like becoming a better communicator, becoming more confident, becoming more committed, doing what you say you're going to do more often. I think most people could outgrow their limitations and outgrow failure if they could actually step over the wall. And part of that is accepting the fact that to get what you want, you must grow.
Sometimes you have goals, but you know what? You have a hard time reaching them. And you just can't figure out why. Why is it that you can't achieve those things that you want to achieve? Maybe it's dedication. Maybe it's motivation. Maybe you haven't picked the right goals. So this is where I was not too long ago. And then I realized something. I've been developing the Power Goals program my entire life. And here it is now for you, where you can learn how to pick the right goals, figure out how to achieve those goals, how to stay on track, but most importantly, how to get back on track when you get off. So are you ready? Are ready to up your game and achieve those things that you've been meaning to achieve for so long now? Simply go to movingforwardleadership.com/power and learn more about the Power Goals program and achieve everything that you've been wanting to achieve. And now, back to the show. No, I definitely like that. And I definitely love the idea of outgrowing your limitations, right? And I think a lot of people don't pay, give themselves enough credit for the crap they've already been through in their lives, and the stuff growing up, or through high school, through university, whatever the case is. I think a lot of people don't even see that. And I was working with a client last week, and he made a decision, super small decision, something that even at first I didn't think of it. But then when I stopped and reflected on it, I'm like, no, that was awesome. You stopped doing the problem, the root cause of your problems, and you actually made a significant change. And now you're going in the way, the direction where you want to go, where I think you need to go, and all this. And he's like, yeah. He's like, wow, I didn't think of it that way either. I'm like, well, you got to stop and reflect.
That's why I hired you.
Exactly, right? But it's a stopping, reflecting, and looking back and going, holy crap, you know what? I did go through all this stuff. I got this. I can do this. Yeah, it's a little sidestep, a little bump in the road, but I'll get back on track and get there. Now, you mentioned that you don't like putting timelines on where you want to be, where you want to go. Do you think that could potentially let people get a little bit lax on not striving?
It depends. It depends. And I'm going to backtrack one thing I'm going to add to what you just said, which is huge. You've been doing this 4 years. Do you mind asking how old you are now?
37.
Okay. So here's the question. I'm going to ask something crazy, and you could borrow this for coaching. I was on a podcast once, and I looked the guy in the eyes, and I said, he goes, Michael, why did it take 9 years to get the book done? And this will answer your question with the timeline thing. It took 9 years to get the book done, or 7 years, whatever it was, because a 9-year-old boy was trying to write the book. A 9-year-old boy who had insecurities, had ADD, because that's our generation, ADD and Voltron and everything else, right? And all the things we did when we were kids. Remember Voltron, right?
Remember Voltron.
And Voltron, Defender of the Universe, right? And Goonies and everything. So we had ADD. I was trying to prove a point, didn't want to ask my wife for help because then I'd be weak, right? And I'm trying to write the book. And one day I'm like, wait a second, what the hell am I doing? What does a 40-year-old man, that's what it was, a 41-year-old man do, this is last year, that has helped talk to over 1 million people over the year, that has coached hundreds of thousands of people, that does instant transformational work with people, that's blah, blah, has a great marriage, who's got 2 great kids. What can that guy do? It's like you, like, what does a 37-year-old man do that has an amazing career, that coaches people, that has a podcast for 4 years, most people don't make 4 weeks, that has great relationships, great friends, knows how to impact people's lives? What can that guy do? And the problem is most people look in the mirror and they see a 9-year-old, they see a 10-year-old. They don't actually see their current average. They don't realize, wait a second, I've been through so much. What can that guy do? And I don't think literally most people have ever looked in the mirror and seen themselves. So when it comes to the time thing, you want to speed up the time frame. Most people can do, like, I got my book done in 4 days. Once I realized, wait a second, I went to my wife. I go, will you help me just read over this? She goes, I'd love to. And the greatest breakthrough for the book was, it's okay to ask for help. Crazy. Yeah. How I got that done. So that's my thing. So when you ask for timelines and people worry about timelines, my question for them is, you'll do it if you're supposed to. And you'll probably get what you need to get done in 2 weeks if you actually got at it. But the biggest reason you don't get at it is your average, which is you, has a vested interest in your current reality. Most people's current reality is, like, if you're a sharpshooter and you get 90% accuracy, that's your average. Your average, you have a vested interest in that. So in order to get 98% on the range, it's going to require a completely different way of thinking than you currently have.
Yeah, it's funny. Who was I listening to? I was listening to, I forget the name now. Anyway, it was
Let's make one up. Make one up. Kaiser Sose from The Usual Suspects, right?
It's a fighter. It was a UFC, I believe, a UFC fighter, or Muay Thai fighter. Anyway,
I work with a lot of those guys. The gym next door to us, they train them all.
yeah. So anyway, this guy came second, and essentially he destroyed everything about his training, because he's like, I need to basically start from scratch in order to stop being number 2 to become number 1. And
it's identity.
So the follow-on fight, he ended up becoming the number 1 fighter.
Wow. That's amazing. See, I see that's what it takes. Like, you can't be number 2 and number 1. You can't be like Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier, 2 great players. There's a big difference on the stat sheet, and they did 2 radically different things. You got to decide, are you the leader of leaders or the greatest goal scorer of all time? That's what you've got to decide. And in that, all of us have within inside of ourselves a way to be better than we currently are. But the question is, what is your current average? And you have a natural tendency, I do too, to do the things the way we do them. We all do, because your unconscious mind has automatic programming and a vested interest in your current reality. And if you want things to change, here's the hardest, scariest part. You need to admit you're not good enough. And that shit's scary. Scares people. I don't know if we can curse in Canada, but I know we can curse in the States. But what's interesting is you've got to ask yourself a question. If you're not good enough, is that a bad thing, or is that the first step towards getting better?
Right. No, 100%. And how you go about, how you view that question, I think, is one of the most crucial things, right? This is a scary question, but is that an attacking scary question, or is that a truthful scary question?
It's the truth. I mean, none of us are good enough to get what we want yet. We are good enough to have what we have. Mm-hmm. You have inside of you everything you need to get what you want. But current reality, you're not supposed to have it yet, unless you change your average.
Awesome. Michael, man, this has been a definitely interesting and
I like that.
Eye-opening conversation for sure.
I'm not your typical corporate guy, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely not. And actually, that's what I like. And that's why I want here at Moving Forward Leadership, is not those typical things, because like I said, at the beginning of the show, I focus on 3 domains. And one of the domains is leading yourself, because I firmly believe in order to be a good leader, you have to be able to understand who you are and operate at your peak performance. Make you the best person, the best version of yourself, so that you can go ahead and take that and run it through your team and then through your organization. So
agreed.
Right. So that's hence why you're here. Hence why you talk nonstop for like 25, 30 minutes there.
That's how I do it.
No, it's awesome. So before I wrap up here, I got a couple last questions for you. That one I ask all of the guests at Moving Forward Leadership. And as according to you, Michael Bernoff, what makes a great leader?
I would say that the greatest thing a leader is they do the little things. And I think that most people think leaders do the big things. It's you keep your commitments to the little things. If you do that, you become a great leader. I think most people are watching people all the time. We don't remember the big things as much. We remember the little things a lot more, the little insignificant things. It's keeping your commitments to the little things.
It's all about the fundamentals, keeping with the sports theme, right? It's all about the fundamentals. If you ever see someone thrown back to the junior leagues, it's because they've forgotten about the fundamentals of the game.
Agreed.
Awesome. And the final thing is, how can people find you? How can they get a copy of the book? It's all about you. Feel free to give yourself a shameless plug.
Okay. I appreciate that. Definitely go to averagesucks.com, or I mean, you guys might have to go to amazon.ca if you're Canadian, or Amazon AU or Target or Barnes & Nobles. You can get it. Get the book. I made it for us, people that, right down the middle, people that can't figure out why things are holding them back. And it's amazing. So definitely get the book. It'll blow your freaking mind. And it's written for people with ADD, basically. It's so easy to read. You'll finish in 3 hours. Will be one of the best reads you ever read. And the story at the beginning, I wish I didn't have to write, but it's a necessary one for everyone to hear, of how I lied to myself my entire life about how incapable I was and how capable I really was. So get the book. And then I'd love to help you guys out any way I can. I mean, since COVID started, we've been helping people with their lives, and you can check out what we have going on at calltoactiontime.com. And that's, get a chance to work with us and our team, check out what's going on. It's calltoactiontime.com. And Scott, join us too, man. You'll love it. I've been doing this 17 years. I'm giving away one of our little programs, and it's live with me. And instead of just sending to a random website, spend a few days with me. I do not do coaching like you do. That is not what I do, but I do work on very strategic classes, and it's 5 days, couple hours a day for 5 days, kick your butt, hold your hand, and I'll get you to the next level and make you way more effective so you can work with this guy and have you coach up your business.
Awesome. For the listeners, always, it's easy for you. Just go to the show notes, and all links and even more are there. So, Michael, again, thanks for taking time out of your schedule.
Thank you. Average sucks, guys. Always remember that.
There we go. Mic drop it.
Boom.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.